Just look at the camera and let me take a few pictures of you. Great. Big smile, like you want it, right? That's it.
I'm going to be talking about one of the worst films I've seen in recent years. Now, this isn't typically a film that I would normally review on here on this channel, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So we are talking about 2016's Girls for Sale. So this is a human trafficking story, and it basically focuses on the sale of girls, particularly from Eastern Europe, being sold into the kind of the sex trade, basically. Focuses on a few girls as they are sold into a brothel in London, basically, and kind of tells their story. And then we have this kind of journalist, or this kind of low-level journalist, who basically tries to kind of do a bit of an expose on it. And it kind of focuses on a few different people, basically, a few kind of subplots along the way. But why is it so bad? I've got to say, this is a very, very low-budget movie. But I'm going to talk about the couple of positives I have for it before I launch into this one. The couple of positives I will say for this film is, first and foremost, when you think about films that you've seen that involve kind of prostitution and the sex trade, sometimes I feel they can be somewhat glossy. You're thinking Pretty Woman and stuff like that. This one, I mean, the brothel that you'll see here is just someone's kitchen, and people are just sort of sitting around waiting in someone's kitchen with a washing machine in the background, and the kind of like the madam just sat there playing backgammon on her phone, things like that. So it kind of is definitely doesn't glamorise the kind of the sex trade, and kind of, I would say, probably gives it somewhat of a realistic bump of probably what it really is. Certainly in the kind of like the, inner London and things like that. I'm sure there are glamorous brothels around the world, but I wouldn't know, I'm sorry to say. Anyway, so I kind of quite like the kind of the grittiness of it, maybe the somewhat the sort of the realistic take on maybe what it really is like in that kind of industry, so to speak. And the other thing I would say is there are a couple of okay performances, and I highlight this because the rest of the acting is terrible. But there are a couple of okay ones. A couple of the kind of these females, these girls that are basically been sold into the sex trade, give an okay performance. And there's also a guy who plays this kind of pimp, and there are a couple of occasions where he kind of comes across as quite threatening and quite a scary character. Some of his dialogue is bad, but again, I think he does an okay performance of what he's given, basically. But on to the negatives. This is some of the worst acting I have ever seen. So there's a couple of okay performances, and I'm not saying they're great, they're just okay. But the rest of it, oh man, I am cringing watching some of this kind of line delivery. It's so funny.
You want a cigarette?
No thanks, darling. I quit last year. I used to smoke cigarillos. Cigars is my poison now. We just launched a VIP service.
And this is a serious subject. I mean, we're talking about human slavery, and the line delivery and the performances of this movie are so bad. It just, you just can't help but think, man, I just can't take this film seriously. It is that bad. But I feel it's not just the fault of the actors. I feel the actual dialogue that they are saying to the script is either crap or that it's completely ad-libbed. I mean, some of it they seem to be struggling to pull reactions out of the air, basically. So I feel some of this film has been ad-libbed, and they're struggling to think of what that character would say. But if they're not, the script is just terrible. But that also goes hand in hand with the direction as well. I feel the direction here is terrible, not just in the way that I feel the director is giving direction to the actors, but the way the camera's shot. The actual position of the camera I feel is not very good. The audio levels are terrible. I mean, you're in the same scene, you'll have one person talking that you can hear fine, someone will respond and you just can't hear them, and things like that. And there's the backing music that plays, and there's a scene where they're in this party, and we're meant to have people dancing, and they have this weird, clearly not club music playing, and it's just ridiculous. And there's also kind of a lot of dead space, so you'll have Just basically someone on screen doing nothing, like listening to a phone call, but you won't hear the voice. You'll just see him like for a minute or so just going. So it's just terrible. And the worst thing, I guess, there's many worse things. The plot is almost incomprehensible. It just seems scenes have been jumbled up and kind of just slapped together with very little kind of actual through narrative. So it's just a mess of a film. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's almost like a car crash, this movie. You kind of thinking, what am I watching? But you kind of think, it's so like, how has this film got made? How has it got financed? But there it is. You're watching and thinking, man, I could do better than that. So I've got to say, it isn't the typical film. It's difficult. I don't really have a category for this sort of film, to be honest. But it's so bad. I feel it may be worth watching just to say, this isn't how you don't make a film, basically. And if these people can get a film made, then there's chances for everyone if you are an aspiring filmmaker. I'm going to give it a 2.5 for comedy value. And I feel bad saying that, considering this movie is about sex trafficking. But man, it is quite funny to watch, but not for those reasons. Anyway, 2.5 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Am I wrong? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.